That was
All
an intro and
right.
a half.
Yes, it was. I was honestly not ready for that intro, but hello, everybody. Welcome back to Full Circle, episode 14. It has been a while, so very quickly, I'm going to go over how this works, and then I'll introduce everyone, and we will get right into it. We are going to be talking about both 3WC and Course Close. These are the two notable tournaments going on right now. We are going to be analyzing some matches from the last weekend, and then we've picked out a few key matches for next weekend that we'll be doing predictions for. Now, once 3WC ends in a couple weeks and Corsets Close gets farther into the tournament, we will be switching over to entirely Corsets Close focus. We're also going to be trying to have a player interview this week. This time around, we've got Criller. He'll be on the show around 2030 to 2045 UTC. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But with that being said, I'm iFlame, and today I'm joined by Taikani, Sad Shiba, and Knots. How are you guys all doing today?
I have the wrong
Hello.
avatar. I'm very, very sad about this.
Damn it, Knots.
Already.
Had one job.
Yeah,
Well,
I'd
with
say
that being
technical
said-
issues, but go
It
on.
happened.
All
It
right.
happened.
Well, let's waste no time at all. We are going to get right into 3WC. Winners bracket match, maybe not as close as a lot of people expected. South Korea versus Hong Kong. Why don't we start with Taikani? Thoughts on the match?
Honestly, it's such an insane match. Like, I don't think Hong Kong put up bad scores in the slightest. The problem was the forum factor, where worst HR player forum was putting up an FC on every pick that South Korea had, as well as Hong Kong's last pick, which was the pick that South Korea won off of. It was kind of crazy just like looking at the scores because you consistently see worst HR player top of the lobby 1 million for like every map, give it except for like one or two.
Shiba?
Yeah, I've got some pretty specific thoughts on this because this generally, on paper, would be really back and forth. And if you were to notice that SK actually won two main speed stamina maps that normally Hong Kong will kind of do better on. They kind of normally outshine it, but the kind of struggle there, kind of the struggle on the mechanics heavy stuff, and of course worst HR player like Gunga carrying on top of that was definitely a kind of a factor. I was expecting it to be a little bit closer, but there were like a couple maps that I think Hong Kong maybe choked a little bit. Most notably on the Hidden 1 and Hard Rock 2. I think those two maps definitely could have been won by Hong Kong, but it was it was an unfortunate situation. But they had a really good attempt. They had an unfortunate start because SK had a couple solid breakpoints and managed to get a really good lead of 4-1, and Hong Kong tried, but I unfortunately they couldn't come back from it, and Hong Kong SK got a really, really good win over them. It could have been closer though, to be fair.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd chime in with the Hidden 1 Hard Rock 2. It wasn't just that. It was also, I feel like it was a trend of the match with kind of bizarre breaks from Tsuwagi and MCY4 costing Hong Kong the match, essentially. It was also the free mod 1, Tsuwagi finding a slider break on literally nothing. I believe the DT4 had some similar incident. It's just throughout the match, them getting breaks when they really, really needed to combo, and Forum just not doing it ever. So match costing them. And I feel like there's also the depth of the SK roster. I feel like HK is maybe a little over-reliant on Tsuwagi and MCY4. It's funny because coming into the tournament, I think a lot of people would have said the South Korean roster is over-reliant on Forum, but I think it's they've proven that they're a deeper roster than that.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And going into this match, right, everybody expects it to be Forum against MCY4 and Siwagi. But as good as Forum was, that really wasn't the case in this match. Like you said, Notch, this was just a really solid team effort from South Korea. You look at the individual performances, all 5 South Korean players that played in this match were top 15 individual in the tournament. I think that is just so impressive out of them. I thought, the pick ban was pretty smart from both teams. You honestly can't fault Hong Kong, both the breakpoints they gave up. You really can't fault them for picking it. And South Korea was a little bit more dominant than I personally expected. Whereas, of course, Hong Kong did place all their eggs in the MCY in Suwagi basket. And against such a well-rounded roster like the South Korean lineup, it just wasn't enough, unfortunately. Anything else to add on that one?
Yeah, I think Jean Woo-young in particular was probably kind of a good outlier here from South Korea. Like normally you see West HR player kind of being the star carry, but there were a couple maps in that match where Jean Woo-young really went far and beyond and top scored South Korea, outscoring, for example, West HR player Naomi Kokoro on Say Goodbye. You also had the FC in Mirage Garden, and of course I think the most impactful one, which kind of push South Korea to that victory on the final, or not the final map, sorry, the hidden one, was on the hidden one where he got 1 million. He was the only 1 million score. He outshined Worst HR player and kind of single-handedly pushed South Korea to that win. I think that's a good credit. I think Jean Woo-young really did well this match. I think he's a player to kind of keep an eye on later stage.
Yeah, has
I
been
thi- I think
stepping up.
I think it's also just worth mentioning that Form was the best player of the weekend by a length. Like, in spite of the depth of the SK roster, it's Form still did his thing.
Yeah, I expect he'll continue to do so. But dropping it down to the losers bracket now, we had Germany versus China. Germany took that one 6-3. Knots, why don't you start us off with this one?
Okay, I'd say that. First thing that comes to mind is Criller. I recall commentating the match and just kind of saying Criller a whole lot because he was the big impact player of the match, and if you could have only this second match on the stats sheet, I believe he would be much higher up on that list of players. But you also had the backup from Akarini and Shark, which I think really got Germany all the way and was quite consequential. Akarini even almost FCing the HR3, stuff like that. I think China missing Joseph Joestar was impactful. Very much felt, especially on the last map of the match. Also, the very deeply unfortunate break from Milk Tea. It was a very sad way for the match to end, I think. Like the DT2 mispick from China into losing the free mod 1 in a rather undignified manner. It's not how you wanted to see China go, but ultimately I still think that Germany deserves the win.
Yeah, I thought in that one it was kind of a battle between Crystal and Curler, and ultimately Criller took that one by quite a bit. You look at all the maps that ended up being fairly close, 100K, 200K difference. Criller showed up on those close maps every single time. I also thought the No Mod 1, No Mod 2 ban for China was a little bit strange considering how good Germany has been on Hard Rock pretty much the entire tournament. So China opting not to ban out any of the Hard Rocks, and they proceed to get blown out by about 700,000 points on the Hard Rock 3. It makes you wonder if they couldn't have very easily given up either the No Mod 1 or the No Mod 2 ban, which I think they would have had a better chance on, and opted to ban out the Hard Rock instead. Could have seen a much closer match, but of course, they would have had to find 3 other points somewhere along the way. So Germany very well could have won regardless.
Yep. I wanted to add that I feel like the 2 breakpoints that Germany got on No Mod 4 and DT4 was super, super damaging for China. Because China do have on paper like a really, really good tech team, but just Kriller existing for Germany was just unreal. He did so much value for Germany, but generally on top of that, just Akarinya as well. He's been doing so good this tournament, just full stop. People kind of didn't see him before in the previous rosters, and he's kind of established himself as a really, really strong mechanics player and really good on hard rock and aim. And I think he's also been a huge factor for Germany. But that DT2 pick from China was like the last nail in the coffin, I think. I don't really understand why they went for that, especially lacking one of their core speed players. Just Germany are great at mechanics. They've got a great mechanics team. So I'm surprised that China went for double time 2. Sure, they have a decent team for it, but not putting in Jack Wang or Joseph Joestar. Of course, Joseph Joestar was missing, but not having Jack Wang and not having Joseph Joestar in there was serious. They could have probably gone for another option. Like Nort's mentioned before, they had other choices, so it was unfortunate to go for that DT2. But yeah, overall Germany did really good, and Kriller was amazing that match.
Yeah, Kriller, definitely a highlight player for Germany. I do want to focus a little more on Akarnia, as you said, though. Kind of a German player I hadn't heard about before this year. Just in the past month or so, I've been seeing him like pop up all over the place, and these performances are like really, really good. And it's something where I'm like looking at Akernia and thinking, I don't know if this is an OWC year for this player, but I would love to see it at this point. Putting up such amazing supports, just like even on the criller highlight plays, right? Akernia's like there to put up the supporting combos. So I really hope that we see more of this player in the future of this tournament.
Yeah. I definitely like to see the up and coming players for Germany. You look at the individual statistics, right? And obviously, the German players are a little bit lower because a lot of them didn't play as many maps. They had a good variety of players in. But aside from Curler, everybody's outside the top 40. And when you get into the later stages of the tournament, like the finals, that becomes really scary because other teams also have their star players. SK has Forum, HK has Suwagi and MCY4. And so if you don't have the support, things are going to start to fall apart really quickly. Next match, this one, I think was a pretty big upset. Italy versus Poland. Italy managed to squeeze it out 6-4. What did you think about this one, Shiba?
Honestly, in my mind, Poland were pretty restricted. I mean, they lost two of their surefire strongest map wins on DT2 and Fremont 1. Like that got insta banned. And Italy not only performing really well and having kind of a good mental because they've played phenomenally well this tournament, but they managed to get some really, really solid victories. And Poland, unfortunately, managed to miss a very great opportunity to maybe take the lead on the double time 3, because I'm surprised to see Italy pick that DT3, and it was super unfortunate because Poland on paper really should have won that one. So I'm a little upset to not see that one go through to Poland. It could have been a much closer map. Maybe TB would have been shown, but Poland really should have won the DT3 and also the Hidden 2. I think they've got a great Hidden 2 team, and it's unfortunate to see that they lost that one too. I honestly just think it was a kind of a lack of really surefire maps for Poland to win, and on top of that, Italy just really playing well, really, really playing well. I think they're a great dark horse in this tourney, and they showed up against Poland despite it being an upset. I have huge respect for Italy. They did really, really good.
Knots?
Yes. Well, I mean, the big highlight for me was the Jazag postulate turning into the Jazag law of Italy always wins Jazag maps, since there were 3 of them in the pool, and they got absolutely obscene team scores on every single one of them, and played was legitimately a pretty big, impactful factor in the match. I mean, it's 3 points that they just completely owned on. I think it says a lot about how ridiculous the Italian core is, as much as they have their weaknesses. Just the fact that you can have 3 players and they get this far into the tournament, especially when certain people on their tier lists might have picked them to not even qualify because of that fact. Also, I'd say about the DT3 was maybe a little bit of a silly pick for the pool. It was, I feel like Italy were gifted that one. In a sense, it was just very easy, very lopsided difficulty-wise. But ultimately, in spite of that, I feel like Italy deserved to win. They looked really good.
Yeah, I'd agree. I was really impressed by Croce actually for Italy. Isn't necessarily this as much of a big name player as some of the other stars, but really showed up when his team needed him and put up the big carry performance. Now, I did think the Hard Rock 1 ban was a little bit odd from Poland. You look at Italy's performance throughout the tournament. Poland was 5th on the Hard Rock 1 in qualifiers compared to Italy, who did very poorly on it. Obviously, nobody played the Hard Rock 1 in quarterfinals, but going back to round of 16, Italy bottom scored the Hard Rock there. And so even if you don't feel comfortable on the Hard Rock 1, I don't necessarily feel like Italy would have picked that anyways. And so it feels like a little bit of a wasted ban to me. You could have easily banned out something like the Free Mod 2 instead, that they just didn't have anybody who was comfortable on. I think most of their players got around 500, 600K. Whereas you look at Italy's scores, this is, I believe, the 3rd week in a row that both Omega and Kurochi have double FC'd the Free Mod 2. So Italy is just terrifying on some of these free mod picks. And I think it was just a really poor pick ban error to leave that open and ban out the Hard Rock one instead.
Yeah, I was wondering when I first saw this match what was really happening with Poland. Obviously, seed 5, the favorite to win this match, but it really was the Kiro factor. She was doing so well. Along with that, you had oh my god, Arj putting up a lot of good supports, sometimes top scoring a lot of the maps. I think those two are so essential to Italy's lineup, and they really showed it. I really loved seeing this match, seeing Italy take the upset. Kiro and Arch just did so well. Obviously, great supports from Shadow Modico as well, but I think those two were definitely the star players of almost the weekend, I'd say, if it weren't for Criller and Forum.
Yeah, I can agree on that. I think the core trio that Italy used with Kurochi, Arj, and Shadow Modico was kind of a solid core for Italy. Somehow they're so flexible and so diverse. They only had a few situations like in DT1 where they subbed out Arj for GG on the double time 1 and the normal 2. Kind of swapping out those really heavy tapping mechanics, DT, just having GG in there instead, which is perfectly fine. Despite Poland winning that, I think that was a kind of a solid 4-man core that they had there. Yeah, Italy just did really good with their circumstances. Like they played out of their minds. They made great advantage off of that pick ban scenario, like I mentioned before, iFlame. And yeah, they as I mentioned before, they've been a great dark horse. I'm kind of excited to see what they do in the next match. They've got a really tough opponent in losers bracket with Hong Kong. But I'm kind of excited. I kind of hope that they outshine, kind of outdo themselves as predictions. Yeah, I'm excited. This Italy team's really exciting. Really exciting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting one. And with how good Kurochi has looked this last week, I think she's going to need to put up a similar, if not better, performance if they're going to take on Hong Kong. And I think that leads us nicely into our 3WC predictions. So let's start off United States versus SK winners bracket match. That is going to be probably one of the best matchups of the weekend, competing for the guaranteed top 2 spot. Shiba, why don't you start us off with this one?
Well, of course, it's the infamous kind of OWC kind of revenge kind of between the two respective nations. They may not be in the same tournament, but these guys have history, right? This South Korea team though is so strong, and despite United States being as well like a really stacked team, getting number 1 seed in the kind of in the qualifiers, I still think SK kind of with their incredibly kind of diverse roster and just general well-roundedness and of course the West State trial player factor, I really think that SK are gonna kind of edge out on this. I feel like SK kind of beat USA on more skill sets than not. Kind of no mod, hard rock, gimmick. I kind of see South Korea taking those over. I think the only hotly contested mod is going to be hidden, because USA do have a really good hidden team. Of course, they've got really good gimmicky players as well. They've got Boshiman, they've got Takedo. I think those two are going to be star players. And that Fiery Rage is going to be great for the hidden reading. But any kind of funky maps, any gimmicky maps, I think South Korea just have the edge over it, despite having Boshiman around. I think Boshi is going to be kind of the reliable carry on that map. It's going to be close, but I think SK will win. I think US can only really kind of outscale them on mechanics, maybe double time. But yeah, just general, in my eyes, I think Korea are going to win 6-4. And yeah, I think Korea are just too well-rounded. I think Korea are going to take it.
All right, Knots, let's hear your prediction.
All right, I'll just go up front with my prediction, actually. I'll even say a score, just because I feel like going hard. I don't know why. I'll, people can tweet about it later or something. That's cool. But 6-2 to SK is what I would say. I'll go out on a limb and go pretty harsh on it, even, because what I'm betting on is that even the US is not going to be able to abuse on gimmick. I think that SK is just better on hidden and gimmick, in spite of the US actually having quite a solid roster on that. SK has just looked insane on those skill sets, and I just think SK is more consistent, in spite of the US also looking very good. I don't know, for SK, maybe no mod alt is one map I could imagine being a bit scary. I think it's a bit of a different map this round, but it's still close enough. It's also a short map. The US got a crazy team score on it. I think they almost had a 3-way. And stuff like that probably works out quite well for the US. Yeah, mechanics basically. And mechanics that isn't just the one slots in particular probably works out for the US. Precision might be good, but yeah, worst HR player carry likely to be even more consequential as well. So I'm feeling SK.
All right, that's 2 SKs. I think Shiba and I are on the same wavelength here. I'm gonna have to go SK 6-4 as well. They just looked so dominant last week, especially on those DT picks, putting up a 3 million team score on one of them. And it feels like the depth of their roster has been so impressive. And I will say, I think it's going to be fairly close because the USA does have a lot of very capable players, does have a lot of depth to its roster as well. But like Shiba said, I think South Korea just edges out the US in a few more matchups. And on top of that, I think of all the players on both of these two teams, I feel like worst HR player probably has the highest skill cap of any of them. So when you consider, the roster depth from both teams, then you have the impressive skill cap from Forum to edge out the US. I think South Korea is going to take it just by a little bit. Now, 3 South Korean predictions. Will it be 4? Shaikani, give it to us.
Listen, if I'm being real,
Oh no.
I think
Oh,
that you
no.
guys don't know how to read.
Yeah.
USA is seed 1 for a reason, baby.
Oh no. USA Hopium.
USA,
Oh,
I
no.
will say, has had a little bit less struggle than South Korea throughout the bracket. South Korea was dropping a little bit of early points. USA has a little more data on that. That said, both of these teams are very, very strong rosters. I don't doubt that either could take it. I mean, these are basically both OWC teams at this point. That said, I do think, and honestly, just for playing the game of not letting four predictions be the same thing, that USA can edge South Korea out, even if it goes to like a tiebreaker or something. I think USA has the ability to. I mean, you look at all these names: Fiery, Trail Mix, Bashi, Takedo, and Lugia. Like, this is not a bad roster at all, and I don't think it's a roster that necessarily gets stomped by like forum carry plays and such like that. I think USA is just a little bit more consistent than South Korea in that sense.
All right, there you have it. I like your confidence. We are going to be moving down to the losers bracket now. Let's start with Indonesia versus Germany. Taikani, you can start us off after that USA prediction.
Honestly, this my prediction for Indonesia versus Germany is a little more on the like actual thinking it's going to be one-sided side. I think just watching USA versus Indonesia, I think Indonesia was like good, but I don't think they're good enough to fight against a Germany that has, especially the criller and Acarnia sort of duo to it. I think Germany, just with Kriller alone, could beat Indonesia, and with the supporting combos with Kriller, just along with general comfort, a lot of the Indonesian players maybe aren't as comfortable at this level at the skill cap as this German team. I think Germany just edges them out.
Yeah, I think with the Germany Indonesia thing, I think mechanics is kind of the only really hotly contested thing. But even then, I think Germany still take the edge. They kind of have a very good edge on aim and hard rock. I think those are two kind of skill sets that Germany really kind of drive in against Indonesia. Maybe maps like DT3, maybe free mod 1, maybe Indo could take over. But I think even if they wanted to maybe try and abuse hidden against Germany, kind of Kriller is just gonna do Kriller things, and of course you've got Shocking Germany consistently done really well. I'm going to be to Germany, and in fairness, I'm not as well educated in the Indonesia roster. I've tried very hard to do my research. I spent hours last night doing research on the Indonesia roster, and from looking at their scores, looking at the qualifiers results, looking at previous player histories, I think the only thing that Indo can kind of win over Germany is mechanics, and even then, I think Germany can take. So I honestly think Germany are going to win 6-2. That's what I think.
And Chaikani, do we get a scoreline out of you?
Oh no, Germany 6-1.
6-1, 6-2, knots.
Well, I go 6-2. I'll say. I think Indo squeaks out a point on something that isn't hidden, and otherwise gets a point on something that's hidden. I think hidden looked quite good for Indonesia. They probably have a better overall roster for Hidden, but on pretty much everything else, Germany just has looked better. And I don't know. Hard to imagine. I don't know. I feel like Indonesia might have potential to overperform, but it would have to be an overperformance to try to match Germany, I believe.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I thought we were going to have a lot more disagreement on this match, but I also went Germany 6-2. I mean, when you look at the two rosters, I think Indonesia is more consistent. But we're getting into the finals. Map pools are starting to get much harder. And I feel like Indonesia is going to get a little bit skill capped. Whereas on Germany, you of course have Criller, that high skill cap player who has been so good all tournament long, who can really put up these big carry performances now that we're getting into the later stages of the map. Now, I do think there is some concern for Germany. The rest of the team outside of Kriller has not looked particularly great throughout the rest of the tournament. So I think if we want to see them win in dominant fashion, or if we want to see them make it to the grand finals, we really need to see players like Rising and Rundy step up and put up better performances. Otherwise, I think Germany is going to fall apart as soon as they go up against any kind of stronger, more balanced competitors. Now, one more losers bracket match. We've got Hong Kong against Italy. We're going to start us off this time around. I'm going to say Hong Kong 6-1. I think Kurochi has been very impressive, but as good as she's been, I think the rest of Italy is probably going to be a little bit skill capped. Swaggy and MCY are just going to be too strong, put up too solid of performances. And honestly, against a team like Italy, Swaggy and MCY, I think will be more than enough to take the victory. Despite the 6-2 scoreline, I thought Hong Kong did look really solid against South Korea. They were still able to put up some impressive scores. And I'm not sure Italy can compete. Well, I do think Italy has a few good maps that they should be favored on. You look at the DT3, you look at the the Fremont 2 that Italy has looked so good on all tournament, but Hong Kong can very easily ban those out. And while Italy also looks good on No Mod 1, even the Hard Rock 1 possibly, I do think Italy will maybe get a point off one of those, but realistically Hong Kong takes the other one, and I think Italy is out of points after that.
I claim you and I have the exact same scoreline, exact same predictions for all three of these matches. I was going to say Italy are going to really struggle. What I think is not what I hope. I do genuinely hope that Italy kind of put up a good fight at least. I do really think that Hong Kong are going to demolish 6-1. I think the pool is high, skill caps at Italy have a lot less options to play around, and Hong Kong just generally are too good of a team. And even if Italy pick into the kind of their strengths, which most notably is Hard Rock, Precision, Free Mod 2, those maps can still easily be won by Hong Kong. They've also got a really, really good Hard Rock roster. And although I hope Italy pulls some magic, because I love this team, I love the run that they've done, I think Hong Kong are gonna demolish them 6-1. Obviously, I hope something different, but really all Italy have are Hard Rock 3, Free Mod 3, and Free Mod 2. Those are the only three maps that I can see Italy maybe squeezing out a wing on Hong Kong. Aside from that, though, Suwag and MCY4 are just gonna roll of Italy on every other map. So I'm frightened for Italy, but yeah, I hope they do something good. But 6-1 is my prediction.
All right, we'll get Ty next.
Yeah, I loved Italy throughout this tournament, but unfortunately, I think the smaller team size, as well as just like the skill cap, is going to betray them here. Hong Kong is just way too good. I don't even need to say the names that people are looking at on Hong Kong. Everybody already knows the biggest threats, and unfortunately, I don't think Kirochi and Arch can match that. I think, unfortunately, this is where Italy's run ends. In fact, I would honestly say that this is a Hong Kong sweep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well,
I don't know. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say sweep. I mean, look, it's Italy was underestimated quite heavily coming into the tournament. I think they can take a point, especially on something like Hidden 2, even though it is not a Jazag map. It's the right kind of thing that they did super well on last week. And I believe that HK can get third man syndrome on a map. It's possible. In fact, I think it's quite likely to happen. It's even quite likely that Suwagi and MCY4 get some mysterious miss, just as they did last weekend. So, I don't know. Past that, of course, I still say HK is going to win. HK is going to win. You'd be a fool to say Italy, unfortunately. I wish it weren't so, because I think Italy's a very cool team. But yeah, HK it is.
All right, so looks like since all of us predicted HK and each of us has predicted Germany as well, I'll also get some predictions for the hypothetical matchup of Hong Kong versus Germany, which is what we expect to see for that fourth place match. But of course, since this is hypothetical and it might not be the matchup, we'll get through this one a little bit quicker. Tai County, why don't you start us out? Hong Kong versus Germany. What do you think about this matchup?
I think obviously both of these teams are really good. That said, Hong Kong has been looking so good just in the tournament scene in general lately, where we've seen a lot of German players kind of fall off in a sense. I think Kriller's obviously going to do well, as he does, but I don't think that Germany has the support to beat out a duo of Suwagi and MCY4, along with the supports from Shiraya Yuki, RLSC, F2X, and Hibiki. I think this might be where Germany's run ends. I think it'll be a good match. But in my opinion, Hong Kong probably wins 6-4.
Shiva?
I'll put in my pitch then. As Zakani already said, these teams are both really, really good, and because these are kind of hypothetical, I don't have any kind of like in-depth notes about who would win what. But if I was to kind of think about this and kind of consider each team's flaws, Germany kind of lacking a little bit of skill cap, whereas Hong Kong kind of rely on Suwagi and MCY4 to carry most of their points. I feel like Germany, despite having more diversity and definitely winning on certain maps like DT1, just general aim maps, I think Hong Kong will take the edge, just barely though. I do think it's going to be a tiebreaker situation. I think it's going to be a lot of back and forths. I think Hard Rock is going to be a little bit contested, but not too much. I think Hong Kong will take the edge on those Hard Rock picks. But aside from that, it's going to be quite close. I think Hong Kong are going to take it though, just barely. Because Suwagi and MCY4 are just so consistent, and despite having Kriller for Germany, kind of known for being really consistent, really good on these tiebreakers in general. I mean, he's done he's got one of the most legendary tiebreak performances of all time on his belt. You know, he's still a great TB player, but I think having Suwagi and MCY4 on that TB is going to be too oppressive for Germany. I think Hong Kong are going to win 6-5, despite it being really close.
All right, Knots, let's hear it.
Well, I'm also gonna go HK. It's pretty much that simple. Pretty much as everyone has already been saying. I think you cannot deny Suwagi and MCY4 and Shiraha, especially a continued run in the tournament. I just don't see it happening as much as Germany has done very well throughout this tournament. Also, the last match between them was on a much earlier pool. Had some silly stuff in it as well. I don't think we're gonna see a repeat of what we saw in the winners bracket. Actually, scoreline like 6-3, I would say.
6-3. So expecting that to be a little bit less close. Now, I'm gonna be honest. There's been a little bit too much agreement in this episode so far, and I refuse to stand for it. So I'm gonna go Germany 6-5 in the tiebreaker. Now I think Hong Kong, yes, they have a very solid team, but let me make a case for Germany here, okay? Swaggy and MCY4 are very good, but the rest of Hong Kong has not really shown up so far in this tournament. You have Kriller on Germany, who has been looking incredible throughout the tournament so far, hopefully going to continue to do so. And if we see Rising and Rundy step up, I think Germany has an advantage on the speed picks especially. And as long as they can win all of their own picks, which I think they should have the ability to do, they just have to get a little bit lucky on the tiebreaker, and I think it is very doable for Germany here. That is going to be it for our 3 WC predictions, though. We are now going to be moving on to Corsets Closed, round of 16. There were definitely a few good matchups. The first one I wanted to highlight, that I think was a lot closer than pretty much anybody expected was White Cat versus Demonical. Ended up being a 6-4 for White Cat. Demonical looked very good early on, but did unfortunately fall apart later. But man, it was such a good match. Taikani, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, that one was when I was I was lucky enough to commentate that one actually. Sorry, I need to pull up the Corsets close real quick. I was a big fan of that match. I went in thinking it was going to be a White Cat sweep, if I'm being completely honest. White Cat is honestly just better in some senses. Like, there was a lot of stuff where I just didn't think Demonical had any chance of taking it all. So, imagine my surprise when we actually get into the match and Demonical's taking points. If I remember correctly, Demonical was up like 3-1 at some point. Which was really, really big. Just to have that early breakpoint advantage on White Cat. He won the first 2 picks. He won DT3 and then he would win Hidden 3 as well. He was looking so fucking good early game. Like, it looked like it might have been a Demonical win. White Cat was able to pull it back through some just really good aim plays, but it really could have swung either way. Even the DT1 at the end, it was both players had basically identical scores. It was just that White Cat had a little better max combo.
Yeah, I was expecting White Cat to be a little bit more dominant in this, but in fairness, it doesn't kind of surprise me too much that Demonical put up a fight, considering these guys both have kind of similar skill sets. I think White Cat does have an edge in the hard rock and the aim control heavy picks. Which why I kind of questioned Demonical on the No More 3 pick. I think that was a really unfortunate kind of kill of his momentum. We did see 4 breakpoints traded in a row, which I think we have to talk about. No More 2, Hidden 3, No More 5, and No More 4. All 4 of those maps were traded by breakpoints. So it's safe to say that these guys were close. These guys had very kind of similar strengths in each other's kind of skill sets and whatnot. So it's not too surprising to see some of these maps hotly contested. Like Double Time in general was really hotly contested. But yeah, I think Demonical cracked a little bit on that No More 3. I feel like he made a little bit of a mistake picking that because White Cat is notorious for having exceptional aim control. I mean, he's one of the best no aim players in the world. So it's a little unfortunate to see Demonical kind of choke in his pick and ban situation. But yeah, I think generally it was a good match. Demonical really did put up a fight, and I think it's gonna. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to downplay Demonical at all. He did really, really well. He did really, really well, and it's unfortunate that he choked it on that last number 3 pick, but that's not to say he hasn't got a chance in the next round. He's got some brilliant momentum. He had a really good performance against a really, really strong player. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next round because he's definitely going to kind of express those really strong mechanics, really strong aim stuff, and just general kind of flexibility. Like, he proved his flexibility in this match. So he's going to be a lot more of a threat in the coming matches, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think Demonical put up a hell of a match, and there was only really one map where the White Cat aim skill cap really came into play on the alt pick, and otherwise pretty evenly matched. It is a bit of early pool, it is a bit of Demonical perhaps caring a bit more about the match than White Cat presumably did, but well played.
Yeah, I mean, I want to start out by saying, as a whole, I don't think White Cat played badly in this match by any means. I think Demonical just really overperformed and put up some really impressive scores. I thought the bans were smart from both sides, but let's actually look at the kind of individual performances on each map. I mean, I think it's fair to say White Cat underperformed on HD3, and he was never really expecting to win the DT3. But he got 3rd place on Nomad 2 behind Demonical and Malashevsky. On the Hard Rock 2, again, he only lost to Demonical, Malashevsky, and Zudinator, 3 very impressive Hard Rock aim players. He got 1st place on the Nomad 1, 2nd place on the Nomad 3, which was picked in every single match. And so White Cat actually had some very impressive scores across the tournament. Demonical just played so well, had some really insane scores. And I think Demonical is going to be really, really scary to go up against in the losers bracket if he can keep up this level of performance. Our next match was another fairly close one. It's going to be Chikani versus Enric. Why don't we start with Knots this time around?
Yeah, so I mean, I would call this one of the big stories of the weekend. I think it's a pretty big upset for Chikoni to take this one home. I mean, it's kind of a sad MP link to look at, though. It's on a knife's edge for the final two picks, and Hayak one miss on the Nomad 5 for Enri early on. I think the Nomad 5 almost certainly a bit easy for the pool. So just that one miss costing them a lot. It's a kind of it looks like a very rather frustrating way to lose that match. You know, kind of speed, DT consistency seems to have been the big player in the match here for Chikoni, and I don't know. Enri really should have had the ult pick. Should have took that, but otherwise, I don't know how to feel about it. It feels like I think Enri is better than that match, and I feel like it was an unfortunate match in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I'll admit I was actually pretty surprised by the bans from Enri. Did end up banning double hard rock, and well, yes, Enri doesn't typically play the hard rock. Shikoni has not really been much of a hard rock player either. So when you look at these two DT picks that Shikoni has been so good on all tournament. I know I mentioned this during Shikoni's match earlier today, but getting first and third respectively on DT and qualifiers, ended up winning every DT pick in the round of 16 match. Do feel like those might have been better bans, but I do think, like you said, Nods, that this match was a little bit closer than the scoreline showed. There was there's a few maps that Henry definitely could have taken very easily. With a little bit of luck, and I very well could have seen this going to tiebreaker. Aside from the bans, I thought the picks were really good from both players. I think Enri does probably win the Nomad 3 9 times out of 10, just unfortunately didn't work out this time. And in the end, Chikoni was able to take it.
Yeah, I think I do agree with the unfortunate stuff. There are a lot of really, really close calls. I think Enri is kind of criminally underrated on the speed. Despite Chikoni doing really, really good on the maps that he was supposed to win on, and it being very back and forth with each other's picks. Nomad 5 and DT3, those two maps were incredibly close. And I think Enri just barely missed out on getting a really solid pick, a really solid breakpoint to trade that really, really tragic hidden one loss. Because both Chikoni and Enri did incredibly well on the hidden one. I think, though, that is the highlight map of the match. Both of those outshined the top scorer at the time, which was Emrek, and got very high scores. If it was converted onto score v1, it would have been very high on the map's leaderboards. So it was an unfortunate situation for Enri. I feel like, as you already mentioned, the kind of intensity of the match doesn't really reflect the scoreline of 6-3 for Chikoni. But yeah, I think Chikoni needs a little bit of respect there, because Chikoni did do really good. He was very consistent and made some really, really good plays especially on the hidden one, outshining a hidden comfort player like Enri was super, super, super crazy. I think that was a great match, a great map in general, and yeah, and Chikoni ended up breaking the pick point streak on number 3, and then won the map after that. So it was unfortunate situation of a fortunate couple maps for Enri. I feel like there were like one or two maps that Enri could have just inched forward on and made this a lot closer than the scoreline suggests. But regardless, I think Chikoni did good. I think despite the unfortunate circumstances, Chikoni did good. And I'm hoping for Enri to make a comeback.
Yeah, this match was this match was one I was pretty involved in, personally. I was making some mad predictions. I might have said a thing or two about Enri's sweep before the match. So I definitely got bullied a little when I woke up and I saw that Chikoni won 6-3. I think Chikoni played really, really, really well this match. It's hard to even say like just how much of an overperformance this was compared to what I expected. Seeing Chaconi around other tournaments lately, I wasn't expecting a great performance, and he put one on, and that is very respectable. Henry definitely an underperformance, but even then, even if he was performing at what I expect of Henry, it could have very well gone to tiebreaker. It could have very well still been a Chaconi win at the end of the day. That's just how good Chaconi was playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can even see the stats here kind of reflecting the matchup. You can see that Emery was shockingly underrated before this round on the speed and stamina, whereas his stats just skyrocketed up. And that's just very good proof of showing that Emery really isn't a slouch on speed. And I feel like if he was just a little bit luckier, maybe made a few more precise movements with his cursor or a few more precise taps, he could have maybe edged out on that normal 5. I think in particular that normal 5 was a really, really close map and could have gone anyone's way. But yeah, it was generally a good match, and I hope people don't downplay Henry on this, because both these guys did do good despite Henry having an unfortunate few moments in that match. Yeah, it was a good game, and I enjoyed watching it when I was doing the research here. So yeah, it was a good game.
Yeah. Certainly both put up some good scores, but there was one more match I wanted to cover before we moved on to predictions, and that is going to be Criller versus MCY4, which Criller ended up taking a 6-3.
Oh my
And
god.
let Shiva start us off this time around.
Oh my god. Okay, the proper picture caught me off guard. I can't lie to you. That Pepe staring me down is quite terrifying. But if we look onto the into the match here, Krilla took the match 6-3, and I think this was a very confident game for Krilla. I think Dio kind of stated it perfectly in the time when he casted the match, that Krilla played really, really well with the mental game and winning some maps that on paper MCY4 was also really, really phenomenal on. So it was definitely exciting to see. Sure, tech is definitely one of Krilla's strengths, but if you don't really want to pick a hotly contested map, really. So Krilla really went with the confidence pick here and got a really, really good early lead on the MCY4, kind of getting 4 points in a row and getting kind of a lead that was really insurmountable. And eventually he managed to win the entire match. There was a few godly late game performances from MCY4, most notably in the DT3. That was a great map for MCY4. And he could have really kept the momentum, but then Kriller just slaps him back with a breakpoint on Hard Rock 1 to finish the match. And I think if MCY4 won that Hard Rock 1, it could have got way closer. Way, way closer.
Yeah. Not any thoughts on this one?
I mean, I only really have 2 quick observations, which would be
Okay.
that Nomad 3, Nomad 4, Hidden 1, HR3 were all very close in the match and likely could have gone either way. I think it's a close match in spite of the scoreline, a closer match than the scoreline might imply, and that I think in the future MCY4's relative weakness on tapping is likely to be abused quite a bit. It's not very good. The DT2 performance.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit surprised by the Nomad 2 ban from Kriller, who I feel like is usually pretty strong on some of those stream picks, but MCY is also very, very good at these stream focused picks, so maybe just wasn't feeling as comfortable on that one in particular. And I thought, over the course of the match, Kriller was just incredibly consistent and put up some very impressive scores on his own picks, especially, which you love to see, because it just goes to show you can generally take your own points against some of the stronger players in the tournament, and most of the time that'll get you to at least a tiebreaker. Now, I also have to say, you have to feel a little bit bad for MCY on that one. Yes, it was 6-3, but it was actually such a close match. MCY lost 3 maps in a row by less than 50,000 points, 2 of which were his own picks. And honestly, I don't know how you recover from that mentally. That has to feel so, so bad.
Yeah, I think the TLDR of this match is that Kriller was really consistent. He dominated early game and won the got the mental victory, and then just kind of eventually got the final map to finish it off. It was an unfortunate situation for MCY4. Yeah, he did lose 2 breakpoints really closely, but that's kind of part of Kriller's kind of strategy. He picked maps that MCY4 would pick himself and just slapped him on it, just won. And it's unfortunate because MCY4 is a fantastic player, But so is Criller, and he's so consistent, and he proved that, and he was really smart with his picks. Going for that double time 2 pick was genius. DD2 isn't a notable strength from Criller, and you could tell from the match that was played. Despite Criller losing a lot of accuracy, he held on the combo game, he won, and he full on exposed like a weakness for MC4. And that was a really, really good pick in my opinion. That was a notable pick.
Now, we did have very quickly, we did have a couple matches this weekend already. We had Emrek beating Shikoni 6-1, and then we also had Criller winning his match 6-1 as well, but we won't be covering those this week. Instead, we have picked out a few key matches that we think will be good to go get some predictions on. First one, I think this is going to be the kind of highlight match of the weekend, Suwagi versus White Cat. Why don't we let Shiba start us off this time?
Suwagi White Cat. This is an awesome matchup. I love this matchup because Suwagi is also really good on aim. I feel like Suwagi is known for being good on aim, but I think people would think on paper that White Cat outshines it. I don't think so in this tournament setting. I feel like Suwagi is going to be really hotly contest White Cat on those kind of aim heavy stuff. Mostly the insert mod here ones. I think those are going to be kind of pretty close, and Hard Rock as well. Going to be really hotly contested from both of these players. Generally, their skill sets kind of intertwine with each other, so it's really going to be a matter of kind of consistency and kind of a versatility in the late game picks, in my opinion. But honestly, I think Suwagi just edges it out. Kind of edges it out on everything. Maybe except aim. But generally, Hard Rock, ult, flow aim, all going to be really hotly contested. But I think overall, Suwagi is going to take it, and 6-4 is my scoreline prediction.
All right, that's one for Suwagi. Here, Knots' prediction.
I'm gonna go White Cat. I think White Cat has a higher skill cap, and I think it's gonna be a very close match. I think I have the scoreline at 6-5. I have it at tiebreaker. I think it could go either way, but ultimately I think if it does end up going to TB, maybe that skill cap from White Cat becomes more consequential, and has a bit of an edge on tapping, you could say. So, I'm betting on White Cat to take the match quite seriously. I don't think if there was any factor whatsoever last match, I think hopefully, at least, I don't know, it won't be this match. So, yeah, I'd pick White Cat.
I'm going to have to agree with you, Nuts. I think, yeah, exactly as you said, White Cat, when he shows up, when he cares, is such a good performer. I would argue, yeah, Suwagi's really, really good, and I do think this is going to go to a tiebreaker. But I think White Cat just edges him out, especially on the tiebreaker where the skill cap is more present. It is a mechanics TB, something that White Cat is so consistently good at, and I think Suwagi might just struggle a little bit in that sense.
Yep. I'm going to have to follow it up with a third straight White Cat tiebreaker win prediction. I think obviously they're both very good players and they do have a lot of comparable skill sets. So I do think it'll be very close overall. But compare the maps that both of these players played in round of 16. They actually did play 5 maps in common, which is quite a lot, and White Cat had the better score on 4 out of 5 of them. Now, to be fair to Suwagi, it was only about 100,000 point advantage most time around, but I do think White Cat is just slightly better as a whole. The other thing for me is that, for the most part, White Cat's quote-unquote weakness is kind of his speed or stamina, so maybe things like the DT2, but Suwagi also doesn't really play the speed, and so that weakness is going to be completely negated. And we might even see Suwagi having to ban out the speed picks instead. And so I think overall, White Cat is going to have the edge, and he's going to be taking this one in tiebreaker. Next up, we have got Karcher versus Demonical. I think I'm going to start this one off. I'm going to say Demonical 6-3 actually. So I was really impressed by Demonical's performance in the last round against White Cat, being able to take 4 points off of him. And again, like I highlighted earlier, it didn't feel like a huge underperformance from White Cat or anything. I just thought Demonical played incredibly well. For the most part, I don't think either one has a significant advantage in any mod category, except for maybe the precision for Karcher. And the other thing is, you look at something like the No Mod 2, right? That Karcher is kind of known for, and Karcher has not put up really any notable No Mod 2 scores so far in this tournament. So unless we see Karcher kind of dealing with those frame issues, putting up better scores on things like the No Mod 2, I think Demonical is probably going to take this one because he has been performing just a little better so far throughout this tournament.
I am going to kind of do a little switcheroo here because I think both of these players are players of kind of newly found confidence because, of course, not everyone follows Koch on Twitter, but if you do, you'd actually find out that he lost his lag spike issue yesterday. So this is going to be kind of a newly found confidence thing in my eyes. I think Demonical coming up from a great performance and Karcher kind of finally getting that freedom without having the pressure of getting lag spiked. As far as I'm aware, I've seen on his Twitter that he said that he's lost all his lag spikes and pull off some really good scores in that day. So I think he's kind of found himself a little bit more of his comfort, and I think we're going to see some good scores from Karcher personally. I think despite Demonical doing really well against White Cat and having his confidence up there, he is going to win on those kind of speed and double time picks. I can definitely see that happening. But now that Karcher's kind of got that freedom to kind of do what he used to do, I think he's just going to do Karcher things and just completely shred on these Noble and Hard Rock picks in particular. And I think he's going to take it 6-5. It's going to be a tiebreak situation because both these guys are going to be, in my eyes, going to be in high spirits. I think it's going to be close. I think Karcher's going to take it 6-5.
Yeah, my main worry was Karcher's PC kind of acting up a little bit. But if he believes that the issues that have been plaguing him through this tournament, through the qualifiers, through the round of 16, are gone, I think Karcher wins this. I would argue 6-3. Peak Karcher is, a potential tournament winner. I actually said when I first saw the invite list that I thought Karcher could be a candidate for top 3. And the qualifier seeding number 13 was a huge surprise to me. If we look at a Karcher who's kind of recovered from PC issues, who's able to play at his best, I don't think Demonical really has much of a chance. I think it is a Karcher 6-3.
Well, we do have one more matchup that I wanted to get your guys' predictions on, and that's going to be Nineric against MCY4. Let's start with Ty this time around.
Did we forget about Nortz's prediction on the...
Oh, did we?
I think we did.
I believe we
Uh-oh.
did, but it doesn't matter. It's not terribly consequential. I'll say that my predictions were predicated on Karcher continuing to have issues. So it kind of flies out the window with the revelation that he no longer has such issues. I would have predicted Demonical to win because, well, looking at what happened last week, looking at the qualifier results, I just don't see any reason to believe otherwise. So,
all right. Well, since I feel bad, and I definitely did not forget about Knots, not at all. We'll start with Knots for this next one.
All right. Well, unfortunately, didn't even get to see Nineric last week, a win by default, which doesn't really help things. But I kind of have a predicted flow of things in this match, and that is that MCY4 bans Nomad 5 DT2, loses Nomad 2, and then, maybe one of the HR picks, and then just wins the rest of the maps. It's not that it's impossible for Nineric to take anything beyond that. It's that I would probably give it to MCY4 on paper. So, like 6-2, to MCY4 here.
Yeah, I think MCY4 takes it pretty handily. Nineric, obviously, there's, he's got some golden stats, showing that he's the best at that particular skill set in the tournament just by the numbers, the speed and the stamina. It's what he's known for, but, you look at the rest, and I kind of have some doubts about Nineric's long-time performance, especially against a player like MCY4. The early losers bracket is just too much for Nineric to deal with, I think. Unfortunately, I don't see Nineric going too well. I think he doesn't have that much speed in the pool either. So it's probably going to be 6-1, I'd say, for
Yeah,
MCY4.
I think you guys have pretty much covered most of it. I'm going to agree with the 6-1 prediction in favor of MCY. Obviously, Nenrik is incredibly good at the speed and the stamina, but I think realistically, all that means is we see MCY ban out the No Mod 5, we see MCY ban out the DT2. From there, I think Nenrik possibly wins the, either the one of the other DTs, but with an aim DT and a kind of alt DT and MCY being generally comfortable enough on those, I would not be surprised if we see MCY even taking one of the DT picks, and I think Ninarik may just run out of picks from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you guys have kind of said it all. I think the TLDR of this is that Ninrik is just way too restricted. I think despite being far and away the most consistent and strongest speed player in this lineup, he is far and away the strongest player. Ban strongest player in speed. Ban those two core speed maps, and you really do not have that many options. You've got maybe the DT1, you've got maybe the No Mod 2 if you're thinking about it, but it's more kind of high spacing flow aim heavy, so that even is a dangerous pick for for Ninrik to go for. It's just an unfortunate situation. I think Ninrik is just too restricted. I hope that Ninrik outshines MCY4 on maps that we didn't expect, but I think generally being kind of mostly limited to speed and maybe some high tapping mechanics, it's not going to be enough for MCY4, who's just so much more diverse, so much more versatile. And yeah, I think MCY4 is going to win this 6-2.
All right, those are all the predictions we have for today. Now, the part of the episode you all have been waiting for. We have got Criller joining us. A huge thank you to Criller for being on the show with us today. How are things going so far, Criller?
Hello, good evening. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
doing pretty well. And you guys?
We're doing pretty good as well. So obviously, you had a big win earlier today against Rimuru. How
Yeah,
did you feel about your play in that match, and what was your strategy going into it?
to be honest, I I'm really surprised that I won 6-1 against Rimuru. I was kind of hoping that would be like this, but still I was surprised. Yeah, my strategy, I just wanted to pick the alt maps, the tag maps. So that's why I was kind of surprised when he picked Nomad 4 and actually won against me. So did not expect that at all. But yeah, other than that, I picked the maps I was comfortable on. I like to play. Yeah,
Yeah, I know you
that's I like it.
mentioned
Yeah.
the tech picks there. Now, commentating that match, I was not expecting
I
most of the
could imagine you
picks.
being surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, were you surprised to not see pretty much any aim picked by Ninrik in that match?
Yeah, definitely. I did not want to pick Hard Rock 1 or Nomad 1 or even DT1 at all, just because Rumor is such a great aim player and just wanted to go around these picks and pick more aim control focused stuff. Yeah.
No, of course. I think most people were expecting those. So, obviously, Corsets hosts 16 of the best tournament players around. So it can be tough to stand out among the competition. Is there anyone in Corsets in particular who has impressed you so far?
Oh, pretty much everyone. Everyone is a great player in courses. And yeah, looking at next week, I have to play against Emmerich, and this will definitely not be an easy match for me.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a scary one. So moving
Yeah.
away from Corsets a little bit, you have obviously had a lot of success across various team tournaments lately. You won
Mhm.
Corsets Open, Dynamic Duos, and now you are captaining the German 3WC team. Talk to us a little bit about your approach to roster building. Do you generally focus on more balanced lineup? You just prefer to play with your friends?
Well, as the captain of 3WC, I had to do tryouts, of course. So the team will be as evenly spread as possible. So every skill set will be covered. I noticed that the hidden roster was kind of lacking in the German three-digit community, but on the other hand, the hard rock roster is really strong with Carinia or Rundi. These players are so great. They were carrying me all the time on Hard Rock 3, on Precision Hard Rock, for example. And I'm really grateful of that I have a team with players that really are supporting me. I'm supporting them. It feels great to play with them. Yeah,
Yeah, they've
been
had
having a lot
some
of fun playing with them.
solid performances so far. Now, generally, you have kind of your set of core players, right? That you expect to be generally strong on everything. When it comes to filling out your roster with those last one or two players, do you generally value adding an extra all rounder, or you tend to add more specialists?
Are you talking about 3WC or?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, when it comes to the hidden picks, our roster's really restricted. We only have Shark, me, and FX as 3 players, so we can't build much around that. But talking about other picks, for example, Speed or Hard Rock, we have a much bigger variety of players, and so we can just say, yeah, we can just say that these players who feel the most comfortable can play it, just like a normal team tournament.
for sure. So obviously, you've been a very good tournament player for a while now, but it's easy to forget that you weren't always this good.
Oh
Um,
no.
tell us a little bit about how you first got into OSU tournaments.
Oh, into also tournaments. Some friends asked me that I have been known for a lot. I think my first tournament was in 2020, in the end of 2020. First tournament was actually the test tournament 3, Haftbefehl and what was the other one called? Rio, I think. They asked me to play with them, and I was really excited because somebody wanted to play tournament with me, and to be honest, I did really well, much better than I expected, and that's what motivated me to play even further, even more tournaments. Yeah,
Yeah, it's always nice to
here I
find
am
some.
today.
Yeah, always helpful to find some early success. Now, one last thing, I wanted to get your predictions on a couple matchups. So first of all, USA versus South Koreans uh, in 3WC. Who's taking that one?
USA versus South Korea. Oh, that's a really good question. I think with with worst hardware play, I think South Korea will get it, but it will be a very, very close match. It won't be like 6-0. Yeah, sorry, Takani. I've seen you supporting USA, but I think South Korea gets it.
It's
Yeah,
messed up.
Well,
Messed up.
6-5. I don't know. Just like in OWC in the
well,
finals
I'll
match.
I'll get one more prediction from you. This time for Corsets close, Suwagi versus White Cat. Give us
Oh,
a,
no.
a, a prediction and a score line.
My opinion, that's the closest match compared to the other matches. I really have no idea. I've seen Suwagi pop off so much, but White Cat, I've also seen him always be a bit better than me, and Suwagi's also always a bit better than me, so I can't really compare who is going to be the better one winning this match.
Fair
Mm,
enough.
you know what? Actually, just because Suwagi will practice this pool, I think he's gonna win.
There you go.
I'm
So,
indirectly saying that White Cat should practice as well, but
German community is going to rain
so
down on you, bro. How dare
hope
you?
so. Yep.
I just
So
want to see a good match. That's all.
not of confidence to Sawagi. As we close this one out, again, a massive thank you for joining us for this episode. Was there
Thank you
anything
for
you
inviting
wanted?
me.
Of course. Was there anything you wanted to say to the viewers? Feel free to plug your Twitch or any other socials you have.
Uh, well, yeah, Twitter, criller4, Twitch. I don't know whether I'll be streaming anytime soon, but maybe. Yeah, these are my handles, Twitter and Twitch. And yeah, keep watching courses, keep donating, and yeah, have fun watching.
There you go. As you can see, Kriller's Twitter and Twitch are on screen. Go give him a follow. One more huge thank you to Kriller. But that is going to be it for this episode. We should be back Friday next week to again talk about 3WC finals and Corsets closed quarterfinals. I expect a few good matchups there. Huge thank you to everyone watching. Now, our next Corsets match is going to be 16 UTC tomorrow. So make sure to stay tuned for that. I hope you guys all have a good one.